Welcome to Montmartre. During the winter months and early spring, the artist can sit anywhere. There's plenty of space for everyone. However, in mid-March, just before Easter, the restaurants brought their terracing up. Now, 80% of the square is devoured by these guys, and the artists only get the leftovers. 2 artists are allocated about 1 meter square to be used on alternate days. This is a plan of the Place du Tertre. The artists are in green and yellow. The red area is eaten up by the restaurants. Now, it's not as if the restaurants don't have enough space. In one of them, there's even a lovely garden in the back, where in summer you can get a nice suntan. We need just a little bit more zen in order to work and breathe at the same time. And the visitors need space to do their thing as well. One day maybe the square will look like this all year round. In the meantime, here's some videos for you. This is part 2. Lots of great portraits on the menu. Bon appetit. Now, Tuon is a very intelligent artist who's had consistent success over many years. Way back in 2011, he was drawing like this. Grey paper, black pastel, white pastel, and everything blended in with the estompe stick. Now, next door, the artist is using basically the same technique. Sometimes people add a little bit of color in the eyes just to sparkle it up. Now, as I pointed out in part 1, when I first got my authorization, almost everybody was using this grey paper technique. And almost everywhere you look, you would see this instrument, which is made of compressed paper, which is referred to in France as an estompe stick or stump, and it's used basically for blending. Now, nothing lasts forever. Fashion changes, people's preferences changes, and suddenly grey paper was out and white paper was in. So what happens if you don't change with the times? You go under. And Tuon changes his technique at this point and looks for a new style. This is the style basically you're using now, which is far more colorful. The technique is very simple, and it makes use of watercolor principles. In other words, you allow the white paper to work for you, and you permit some degree of transparency. Of course, the difference is, rather than using paint, you're drawing with a pastel pencil. As you can see, his palette is quite uncomplicated as well, mostly consisting of warm flesh tones. Now, he always spends time on the eyes, but this technique is actually quite fast. Obviously, though, all color work takes longer than monochrome work.
Je travaille sur le papier blanc, coloré. Alors c'est un peu la technique de l'aquarelle, donc il n'y a pas beaucoup de mélange de couleurs. Par contre, il faut travailler la transparence. C'est très délicat, mais c'est assez facile quand on est habitué. Non, c'est pas ça. Je cherche à simplifier ma vie. Je suis vieux maintenant. C'est vrai, tu vas pas faire.
Mais c'est pas mal comme photo, mais c'est un peu dans l'ombre avec le chapeau.
Ah oui, bon, s'il le faut, je vais éclaircir.
Now, Tuon is now showing me how with his telephone he can increase the lightness or decrease the lightness, increase the contrast if he wishes to, all this with some simple controls on his smartphone. And everybody's got a smartphone. Unless you live under a rock, you've got a smartphone. You can't survive without one. It's absolutely a godsend for us artists, portraitists, because clients they can send us their photographs by mail or by WhatsApp, and we can work directly from the phone. We can adjust the image, enlarge it, decrease the size. We want to see details. So easy to make that picture a little bit bigger, so you see those details. Before you had to use a magnifying glass, and it was far more complicated. Now, Tuon really likes saturated color, so this very warm orange pastel being used here as a kind of undercoat will make sure the final drawing is highly saturated, very warm. He doesn't like to subdue his colors with greens or blues. He's going for impact and for simplicity. A lot of illustrators actually use this approach. Now, he's a very confident artist, and you can see that he's more or less got all the proportions perfectly right. He's using a very light colored pastel to start with, and he can strengthen this later. Now, in comes a darker, almost sepia type pencil to define the eyes and strengthen the drawing in general.
En dessin, tu es très rapide. Les proportions, c'est parfait, parfait. Tu as un bon œil, toi, là. Tu as un bon œil.
C'est pas une question de œil, c'est une bonne méthode.
Non, mais il faut regarder quand même, c'est la base de tout. Technique, c'est une chose. Observation, c'est un autre.
Now he's using a sanguine pastel to reinforce the eye area and to absolutely get the three-dimensionality of that nose. He wants that. He's looking for that. So you can see now that this stage everything has been strengthened. Color scheme is quite simple, mostly yellows, oranges, sanguine, and now they've been smudged, they've been blended a little bit, and he's going back to his dark sepia crayon to define and strengthen the eyes. This is all very methodical. He's not getting into details before he gets the big outlines, the major outlines, the important shapes done. Now, This instrument is a battery-powered eraser. It's very good for rubbing out very tiny areas. It kind of vibrates when you press the button. And here, for example, he's trying to create white highlights in the eyes, and it's perfect for that. Now in comes a really black pencil. This will strengthen the pupils, but also the black will bring out the highlights, the white highlights in the eyes. A rich black and a bright white sitting next to each other as neighbors will be mutually beneficial. In the same way, of course, as complementary colors help each other when they sit next to each other. Now, I do try to avoid time-lapse videos because I want you to be able to learn something, especially in very delicate areas like this. I prefer that it's filmed in real time. So bear with me, it's a little bit laborious. Now in comes that mechanical eraser again. Just a couple of touches. Now there's a bit of blue for the whites in the eyes. That's the first time you actually seen blue used in this drawing, which shows you just how simple his color scheme is. Now that crayon has to be really, really sharp for the eyelashes. Now he's using a putty rubber just to clean things up. This is such a useful eraser, especially for pastel work or charcoal work. Now here's a kind of very dark violet color for the shadow areas. He doesn't use green, he doesn't use blues, so the colors tend to mix very well together. And everything's harmonious because basically it's all very simple. The color scheme is very simple.
C'est Bristol? No. C'est Bristol comme papier?
Now, I'm asking him what paper he's using. It's smooth, but it does have some grain. It's not Bristol, which is very, very smooth, far too smooth. I guess you could use any medium grain paper. Now look at this, look at the use of the putty rubber. This is interesting because you can pick out your highlights with this eraser. It's a special kind of eraser and it doesn't damage the paper. Back in the day, artists used to use rolled up bits of bread for erasing charcoal drawings and pastel drawings. In fact, in French, this is called a gomme mi-pain, which literally means bread eraser, or eraser made of bread, which just goes to show you the sacrifices artists will make in the pursuit of excellence, rather than eat their bread like normal people do. They use it for their art. Now, of course, you go down that road, you will almost certainly end up as a proverbial starving artist in the garret. Not to be recommended.
Ils n'ont pas beaucoup de couleurs. Quand quelqu'un qui a beaucoup de couleurs, là, les blondes, les aux yeux bleus, etc., ça rend très bien.
Oui, j'imagine ça peut être encore plus spectaculaire avec les yeux bleus ou je ne sais pas quoi, mais ça frappe, hein, c'est intéressant.
Ce genre de dessin, ça fait très pur et puis ça brille beaucoup plus avec le papier.
Oui,
le pastel, ça brille pas.
C'est très lumineuse grâce à la papier.
Oui, voilà. C'est plus lumineux que les autres techniques, à mon avis.
And he's explained that he's not using a lot of color. I mean, it's not like a full color pastel. Very limited use of color here. Very simplified use of color, we could say. Now, the limited use of color and the maximum use of the white paper makes this drawing very luminous, and of course gives it a lot of impact. Now this is a super useful color for dark areas, defining some of the dark areas, and it's a carb or tello pastel, and I think it's a number 655, but I wouldn't bet my life on it. The brands that most of the artists use are either Carb or Tello or Conte à Paris, but it's a question of personal preference, and you can more or less pick and choose the kind of colors you need from different brands, but in general try to buy in detail and not buy the box sets which have a lot of colors that you actually never use. Now, the putty rubber is so important again to pick out the whites of the teeth. Can't really do this any other way. It really is the perfect eraser for this. You can see that Tuon is squeezing the putty rubber into a kind of point. And then suddenly it ceases to become just an eraser, but it becomes also a kind of drawing instrument. Now, when you're drawing teeth, you've got to be extremely careful. You don't want to make the gaps between the teeth artificially too strong. So, if you're going to err on the side of delicacy, better to underline the area under the teeth, the little gaps underneath the teeth, the round bit which each today is doing it, the round bit between each tooth where they meet, than to emphasize the line itself too much. Lo and behold, there's a little bit of dark green going in there. Now I think he's going to be very economical with his use of this color, because he doesn't want to make it too dirty. When blending very delicate areas like this, it's better to use your fingers as long as they're clean. Now you can see how useful the smartphone is, because you can actually zoom in, zoom out, depending on whether you want to see details or the bigger picture. Even when clients bring me original printed photographs, I still prefer to take a picture of the photograph with my smartphone and use the phone rather than the original print. Print can get dirty, it blows around in the wind. It's just more convenient to use the phone. It should be mostly downhill with this portrait from here on in, because the difficult things have been done, and they've been done quite well. There's the hair to do, there's the background to do, there's the small matter of the hat, but basically the composition is good. There should really be no problems.
Nice, very nice.
Maybe 20 minutes more.
20?
Lots of things.
Spécial les yeux bleus.
Generally speaking, I think it's a good idea to use blue colors, cold colors that are going to recede for the background. Green is a kind of neutral color that can work very well in the background as well. I think be careful with very warm colors for the background, because that's going to come forwards and maybe compete with your foreground. Quite frankly, I think the less he does in the background, the better, because the face is well drawn, and any additional elements that you add are going to be just superfluous. Now, most of the blending so far he's been doing with his fingers, but here he's using some tissue paper. It's logical, it's a very big area, background area. Now, if you've got large dark areas to draw, like for example here's got to draw the hair, which is quite dark, on white paper, you have to be careful, because it can get very dirty. So it's a good idea to do as the artist's done here and leave this until the end. Very dark hair or black hair can be difficult to integrate into a drawing, so you have to be careful. You have to make sure you indicate the volume and create some nice highlights so that the dark areas aren't too overpowering. Now you can see how the artist uses his fingers to soften the hair area. Takes the edge off it a little bit. This is very important, otherwise it can be a little bit too strong with dark hair. Of course, you can always use tissue paper to soften areas of the hair. What you need to do is push the pigment into the paper and just soften it. Now you don't want to spend an enormous amount of time on the hair. He's using a dark pastel here to define it more, get the movement in it, keeping it at the same time lively. You don't want it looking lifeless. And it's coming, it's nearly over now. It shouldn't be long this dry.
La photo, ça a mis 1 heure, je crois, c'est bientôt 1 heure.
D'accord.
Ça fait maintenant, ça fait 45 minutes, mais c'est pas encore 5 minutes.
1 heure pour les deux?
Non, les 2 heures.
2 heures pour les deux.
Sur place, je crois que c'est 40 minutes.
Now, of course, it does take longer when you're drawing from a photograph. This drawing is going to take, in total, when it's done, 2 hours. That's an hour for each face, which is actually quite fast. Tuon is saying here that if he was drawing from life, it would probably be faster. Maybe he would be taking about 45 minutes per person in that situation.
Sinon, ça fait. Après, c'est les contrastes.
Oui, oui, il faut équilibre tonal. Parce qu'il y a beaucoup de blanc, il faut un peu de noir.
Now, a very dark pastel is used now to redefine the hair areas and to give some punch, add some contrast. Now he's using that battery-powered eraser again to pick out the highlights for the earrings. Jewelry adds a little bit of sparkle, and small details like this could be of importance, sentimental importance to the client.
Ah, ben ça c'est malin.
Hein?
On va ajouter le truc de New York, ou je ne sais pas quoi.
C'est là, New York, oui.
Ah, ça c'est très malin.
Pardon.
C'est dessiné avec les gommes comme ça.
Ah oui. Comment tu veux faire ça alors?
C'est rapidos en plus.
Bien, man, ça va?
Ça va, mais...
Now the way the hair falls down there, it's very nice for the composition. Livens the whole picture up.
Ça c'est terminé là maintenant.
Oui.
Non, je
Ça,
stoppe.
j'ai appris beaucoup de...
Je vais peut-être filmer. Bravo Tang. Je lui répète Tang.
Ça va, il va penser à nous.
Ouais,
C'est
flatterie.
bien parce que Tang, c'est un très bon dessinateur.
Non, c'est pas un insulte du tout. T-O-A-N. Hein?
C'est O-A-N, oui.
Oui, ok. Merci Tuon.
The key word for the rest of this video is probably going to be comparisons, because we're now going to compare Tuon's color work to that of another portraitist called Agnes, who also draws with color pastel, but in a completely different way. After that, we are going to compare Agnes's color work with two very good artists who work in black and white on white paper. Now, as always with Agnes, the first step is the placement of the face on the paper. We want to get our basic proportions correct. So working outwards from the eyes, we establish the distances from eyes to nose, nose to top lip, lip to chin. These are the core elements of the face: the eyes, the nose, the mouth. Before anything else, we have to establish that the relationships between these elements are perfect. These proportions have to be right before we get into any kind of detail. You notice Agnes is very quick. She doesn't even take her pencil off the paper. The next step is to establish the size of the forehead in relationship to all these other elements. To do the hair, and then to put in the ear on the other side of the face. Now you can use your crayon to measure horizontals and to measure verticals, to measure any kind of angle, in fact. Now here Agnes stops because she wants to know where the bottom of the ear is. Okay, there it goes across the bottom of the ear, lines up more or less horizontally to the bottom of the nose. Now we're gonna stop, observe, measure, and adjust the height of the head.
En anelse derovre. Ikke så meget. Kom. Ja, det går.
This is what we call a three-quarter view, so one ear is completely invisible. Now, before even thinking about color, Agnes wants to get the drawing correct. She's using a dark violet crayon for this. This won't muddy the drawing later when she adds color. Using a black or a very dark brown at this stage might make things a bit dirty later.
Kom tilbage. Ja, det går.
The model is from Denmark, sitting very, very beautifully. And the artist is from Denmark. So this is a very Danish portrait. There's a lot of shadow on the right hand side, so she's working on that, trying to creating a little bit of volume. Agnes's style is very linear, but it's nice to see her using a little bit of shadow. Just creates this three-dimensional effect, which is really nice. But it's early days yet though, plenty of time, lots of work to do yet. So some progress there. This is slightly new technique, using a pinkish kind of pencil. I've seen Agnes use this palette before. She usually starts with much warmer colors.
Now, when you're working outdoors, the lighting can be a problem. At this time of day, though, it's almost perfect. There is very good directional lighting coming from the left. Agnes is now using light ochre color to illuminate the left-hand side of the face. That feeling of form, of volume, is very important. Now, and it's now looking really three-dimensional, which is good at this stage.
Now she smoothed all that and all those colors together.
Now, as you can see, she is redefining certain areas with a quite dark crayon. It's an Otello violet, dark violet. Obviously, you don't use black. It just makes the thing filthy. There are lots of alternatives to black that you can use that will give you the same strength, the same tonal strength. For example, Prussian blue is very strong, and it will not dirty up your color scheme as much as black. It's a good principle to try and avoid black, except when you really need it. For example, in the pupils of the eyes, and sometimes in the hair, sometimes in the clothing. And all the Impressionists tried not to use black. It's actually very, very rare that you see a pure black in nature. In the same way, it's very rare when you're drawing a face that you see a pure white. Maybe in the highlights of the eyes. Nature is far more subtle, and even what looks like black in nature is usually a mixture of a whole bunch of other colors. She's tightening up the drawing. Now, it's normal that during the process of a portrait you kind of lose it and recapture it and lose it, because you're looking for kind of liveliness. So you may smudge things out a little bit and then tighten it up again and then lose it again and find it again. It's a backwards and forwards thing, which is perfectly normal in the process of portraiture. Just a word about the paper. It's tinted halftone paper. So Agnes can add light colors to the paper. She's not working on white paper like Tuon. It's much easier for her to add colors and to mix colors. And if she pushes it to the end, the result is much nearer to nature. This is a style which is more in the classical tradition, whereas Tuon's portrait is more in the direction of illustration. Now this is a dark blue, make no mistake, it's not a black. We're tightening things up again, tightening the drawing up again. Soon she'll start to work on the eyes now, because most of the face now is pretty good, it's well established. We can start putting the eyes in because foundations are there. You'll see when she gets these in how all of a sudden the face looks a little bit less scary. Now, meanwhile, just next door, another artist is starting work, and he has a completely different approach. He's using a polychrome pencil on white paper. And so we can examine and maybe compare these two styles as they progress. But this is a very excellent artist, and he's incredibly, incredibly fast. So you'll see this go very, very quickly indeed. But we mustn't forget Agnes, because she's now going to start working on the eyes. And this always puts you on the edge of your seat, because when Agnes draws eyes, It's always incredibly spectacular. Now the artist has chosen a 3/4 view so he can make the most of the directional lighting. One eye in. Now let's get that nose right. Let's get that nose 3-dimensional. Very, very fast artist. He establishes his tonal values very, very quickly. What always amazes me about Garbor's work is the speed. I mean, you blink and you've missed him. You've missed half the drawing. He is so fast. I so enjoy watching two artists like this with different styles. When you could see their work progressing at the same time. That's a Conte at Paris, number 47, no, 49, I think. And a nice pinky pencil just to warm up the left-hand side of that face. Looking good. Back to Garbor with his classical cross-hatching style, which is he is an absolute master of. This is the technique he's been using now for nearly 20 years, but I notice that he just gets better and better. Some artists stay the same or regress, but this guy is just, compared to some of the videos I did in the beginning, he's just improved so much, it's unbelievable. The technique he uses has always been popular, now more so than ever before, because white paper has suddenly, if you like, come into fashion again. And I'm so glad that these very good artists like this are reaping the rewards of their hard work, because they really do deserve it. It's high quality work this guy has been doing for so many years now. But we better get back to Agnes quickly, because she's onto the eyes, and we don't want to miss these sparkling eyes of Agnes. No one does eyes like Agnes. And the eyes are being done at the same time here as well. He's trying to pick the highlights out with the eraser, because a little bit more difficult to get that sparkle on white paper. He's got a really sharp eraser. Also, you got to remember that polychromos pencils are not as easy to rub out as pastel or charcoal. I mean, charcoal you can get rid of very easily. A yellow pencil, it's a Conte at Paris number 47, bringing in, accentuating the light that's coming in from the left-hand side.
amazing. You know, it's really looking lifelike. You see it just coming alive. Effortlessly, we can say, because the artist knows what she's doing, and so does this guy.
I mean, to fully master black and white technique, even with graphite pencils, you have to learn to vary the pressure that you are exerting with the pencil, because you can get very nice subtle shading with a very light touch. At the same time, you can get very intense blacks. It's a question of really knowing where to push in and where to be very light and loose. Now, this artist has got a very good eye for values, and he'll keep on working until the shadows are convincing and the light areas really come out. It's so important in black and white that the values are absolutely spot on.
Detail here from Agnes is coming really nice. Again, that number 47 pastel, it's kind of cream color, which look, I mean, we haven't been that long on this. I would estimate it at about 20 minutes maybe, and we've already got a pretty good idea. I mean, we've got a pretty realistic impression of the model already, so it's very fast. Both these artists are incredibly fast. Again, now more shadow to give volume. All that right hand side is going to be darkened, and the hair will come in. Look, obviously it's very dark, and you'll see at the end how good Garbo is with this technique. Always very dramatic, and I love the size. I mean, it doesn't have to be huge. Small drawings are always nice as well. That lighting is very important.
With hair, you have to make it just natural and flowing, and you don't really want to draw each individual hair. It's kind of better to look at it in broad shapes. But she's trying to indicate the movement there in the hair, and it's getting there. It's so interesting to see these two drawings evolving at the same time. Two different approaches. And you can see in one there's a lot of strength, there's a lot of decisiveness, a lot of power. And the other one, there is more softness and delicacy and subtlety. I think the most important thing is that each artist seems to have caught something of the personality of their respective sitters. And this is what a good portrait is all about. some cooler colors in there. These little final touches are so important. There is no one flesh color that you can squeeze out of the tube. Flesh is made up of a variety of colors. Some of them are reflected from other areas. Now Tuon's portrait was very impactful, but he uses color in a kind of very shorthand way. There's a lot more observation here, and it's a little bit more faithful. It's more painterly. And there's a lot of observation here in this drawing. Pretty well nearly finished here, this portrait by Agnes. Now, of course, she started before Gabor, but I think you could say that a color portrait takes about twice as long as a black and white drawing in general. A lot depends on the individual artist, of course. These artists, they move like Ferraris. Me, for example, I move more like a French farmer's tractor. That's about my speed. Now this drawing is really looking good now. He's nearly there. Let's have a look at the model quickly. Now this artist recognizes the importance of putting some shoulders in so that the head is actually sitting on something, not just floating in air. This is interesting. It's something we could maybe develop more, and we could actually do full-length portraits with including an arm and hand. But of course it would take much longer. But that would be an interesting idea for the future. Amazingly enough, both artists are at the same point in their portrait. Both are finishing off the hair. Agnes's treatment of the hair is absolutely terrific. Looks really natural and lively. Perfect. Finishing touches for Gabor, just adding that little body area which he likes to include in his drawings, as I've explained.
So that is finished. There's a big smile, I think.
Yeah, I can virkelig godt lide. Ej, hvor er den flot.
Are you happy?
Yeah, I'm so happy. It's so good.
That's pretty good, and it's going to be finished very quickly, I think.
Næste år, så er det farmand, ikke? Og du kommer tilbage om 10 år? Okay.
No, that was amazing. This is incredible to see a color drawing executed almost at the same time as black and white one. Bye bye. Yeah. Just a touch of that rubber again. I think there's not much more to be done. It's fantastic.
Now, Agnes again, working next to Stephane, who has an incredible black and white felt tip style on white paper.
So the second face is going in now. Always a bit difficult to compose when there's two like this, same piece of paper. That's the beginning of this color drawing by Agnes. On the other side is Stephane making good progress with the second face here. Terrific, very good composition, good likeness. You see there, very good composition, good likeness, interesting style, completely original. The only one who does it with a felt tip pen like this. Of course, it's difficult to do because you can't correct. That's really dramatic, really free technique. You see the artist is really enjoying himself a lot. A lot of fun there. Very good drawing. Very carefully worked out. It fits well on the paper, well composed, and good likeness. Quite fast work as well. Takes a lot of skill to draw like this, so clearly it's not something everybody can do. And I think this is, you know, this is the only guy drawing with pen directly on paper like this. Really exceptional. Exceptional work. Super. Really good. This is an interesting view. We're seeing both portraits at the same time. Both models at the same time. Two different styles. What an amazing place Place du Tertre is when you can see this kind of artwork happening before your eyes. And this is both. These are both very good artists, and these are both very good drawings. Amazing. It's an amazing day. It's a lovely day, lots of sun. And this is a good opportunity for you guys to see all the variety of styles we got here. Wonderful. That one's slowly coming out of the mist, as you can see. Appearing, you know, as if by magic from the paper. It's a lovely soft color drawing, really beautifully. Agnes has got a lovely touch there. And the colors are not too saturated. It's a very nice, soft, subdued kind of color. Paper is perfect. It's called cashew, this paper. Perfect for color work. Of course, the model is sweet little girl. That's slowly coming. We'll see the end of that, hopefully. Yes, how sweet, very sweet drawing.
Now, children aren't easy, so I think we can say that this is actually very, very successful double portrait, first class. Now, we've been making some interesting comparisons so far between artist styles. Agnes's color work in comparison to two other artists who predominantly work in black and white. Now, let's make another comparison. If I show you this style, this technique here, and I don't show you the face of the artist, I'm pretty sure you know who it is. There he is. Of course, it's Stephane. Now I'd like to make another comparison. Let's compare Stephane with this artist's work. Now, can you guess who drew this? Yep, it's Stephane, the same artist. But this is way back in 2011, and he's using that old grey paper style with the black pencil and the white pastel as well. Back then, this was the kind of default technique that almost every artist was using. And he tried his hand at color as well. Now, it's good work, it's competent, but it's not as good as what he's doing now. I think you'll agree with that. Now, was this a revolution or was this evolution? The answer is it happened gradually, and the next step forward was the discovery of a beast or sanguine style that became very popular. He also improves his compositional sense. He begins to exhibit and get some recognition for his work. Now, it didn't happen overnight, as I explained. It took hard work. This is a guy who works really hard. These sketches are just typical. He has lots and lots of sketchbooks. If you're a young artist and you're starting out, just bear in mind, if you have the dedication and you are prepared to work hard, then the sky is the limit. You can achieve anything. Stephane's story is the living proof of that. Now, this is a review of 2021 to 2023. 3 interesting years just after COVID, when Place du Tertre was bouncing back. But at the same time, it's a review of my last, if you like, 15 years of doing these videos. It's made me think about time as it passes, because I've seen a lot of artists come and go. I think Place du Tertre is a healthier place now than it ever was. There are still issues to be resolved, but artistically it's better, it's livelier, it's more vibrant. And this is thanks to a handful of artists. The Chinese artists who came in and popularized white paper. Artists like Gezer and Agnes, whose color work continues to excel. Samuel and Garbo, their drawings are still of the very highest standard. And of course, Majid, who is probably the first artist to have properly mastered the very difficult medium of watercolor at the Place du Tertre. Sadly, I was unable to include Christos or Amer in this compilation because of corrupted video files. But they'll be back, and so will this guy, the guy who painted this. Now, the great Tang has now retired, but I still have some old footage of him, never before seen, and I'll try to show that in 2024. Gagik was always a terrific portraitist, but above all, he's a painter. He's now gone off to show the painters in the square how to paint. Seriously though, you have to be honest to yourself, and I think Gagik is now doing what he really enjoys most. Sadly, this painter and portraitist is no longer with us. He was an absolute legend of the Place du Tertre. His name was Salah, an absolutely lovely guy, a real gentleman, and respected by everyone in Montmartre. I think the future looks bright for Montmartre. In any case, Stephane here will continue to find new ways of seeing. And he's not the only artist who's blazing new trails. One portraitist is going to be working in oils this year, 2024, and another will be perfecting his technique with colored ink markers. And I will be back soon with more tutorials, which I hope you find inspiring, like these girls are. They were here in 2009. Wow, how time flies.
And finally explore everything that you thought you could never do before. And even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go.